about the confirmation of seeing God. Wahi, that verse is وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة. That means faces on that day that are brilliant, at their Lord looking. That's a very easy ayah. So if you're studying your information, you should have been memorized that ayah. So if you don't have any ayah of Quran in memory as a proof, in fact, if you don't have ayahs of Quran and hadiths of the Prophet in Arabic as proofs for different subjects, then wallahi, you are slacking. You are slacking. For every subject, you should have something. Yani, as a student, you don't want to be just someone who listens to the lesson and that's it. So every subject, you should have something. Do you have an ayah about the power of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the existence of Allah in memory? All the 13 attributes. Is there one attribute among those 13 attributes that you don't have an ayah for it in memory? And or a hadith? If so, you are slacking. Wallah. Then you have other topics. That Allah exists without a place. I'm sure you have proofs for that. Here we're talking about seeing Allah. You don't have proofs for that? So, what's that ayah? This very, very easy. It's two ayahs actually. Surah Al-Qiyamah 22 and 23. وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة. That ayah, you could memorize that in a day. You could memorize that in less than an hour. In less than a half hour, you could memorize that. Faces on that day that are shining, illuminated, at their Lord looking. حيث أول النظر بانتظار نعمة الله, where they have interpreted the seeing, the nazar that's mentioned, that means seeing here, they reinterpret it as intizar, that means waiting. What? Intizari ni'matillah, waiting or awaiting the endowment of Allah. So nazar, it could mean in Arabic language intizar. But all the indications here show that it doesn't mean that. It means looking. It means its original meaning. That's like how the Wahhabis tried to misinterpret fawq to mean below. In the hadith, marfu'un fawqa al-arsh. According to them, it means that book was raised under the arsh. These people are saying faces on that day that will be waiting for their Lord. Whereas what's more sensible for both cases is that the hadith means the book was raised over the arsh, raised over. And here, the faces are looking, not waiting, or seeing, looking or seeing. فإن هذا لا يدعو إليه دليل عقلي ولا دليل سمعي. For indeed, this there does not call for it any intellectual evidence nor any documentary evidence. وإنما هو تحريف, merely it is perversion. وفي حديث النزول, a hadith of nuzul, which literally means descent. Oh, have you not memorized that hadith yet? ينزل ربنا إلى السماء الدنيا. Have you not memorized the ayah? الرحمن على العرش استوى. It's been years now you've been hearing that. You should memorize it just by the fact that you heard it so many times. So if you haven't, you're slacking. Now, don't take it personal because I'm a big slacker. I'm one of the biggest slackers. So, I'm a slacker with you, but I didn't slack there. I just slacked in other things. Like memorizing my texts, having all these mutun memorized. Why I don't have Tahawi in my heart now, it's been years. It should be engraved in my heart like Fatiha. That's this way of the true people of knowledge, the true scholars, and even the students. And all those other mutun we took, Nasafi and Al-Ajr Rumiya, and all those metans we took, those are supposed to be in heart. So I'm a slacker too. So you can get on me for slacking, and I'll get on you for slacking. And then maybe, inshallah, we'll stop slacking, all of us together. So, brothers and sisters, everyone is good at something. Here we are Muslims. Everyone's good at something. Whatever you're good at, you should be making your religion, you should be as good in your religion as you are at whatever it is you're good at. What do some people say to their children? Oh, you know all these rappers. Oh, you know all these athletes, and you don't know, you're not doing your homework, or you don't know this, you don't know that, you don't know your history. Oh, you know how to play all these video games, etc., etc. They're good at that, and they're not good in religion. When I say not good at it, I mean they're not studying well, not working towards expertise. Right? Even if a person if he practices martial arts, for example, what does he start with? Is the lowest belt a brown belt or a white belt? I don't remember. But then he works, and he works, and he works, and he climbs through the ranks. How many people now are just now 20 years later like they were 19 years ago or 18 years ago? That's it. Khalas, they learned the right belief. They learned what's kufr, what's not kufr. They know how to pray. I guess they have acceptable Fatiha. Khalas, let's lay back now. Let's sip some Pepsi and play. And then every time I encounter a Wahhabi, I'll call somebody else. He can take care of it. He can answer all my questions for stuff that I heard over 20 years ago. Stuff that I've heard over and over and over for 20 years. Let me call somebody else for the answers to those things. Serious slacking. By the way, who's the one who can talk with those ambiguous terms? The scholars? The scholars don't talk with those ambiguous terms. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala reveals in His book whatever He wills. Any expressions He willed, so be it. He is God. The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he conveys whatever Allah commanded him to convey, according to the expressions that Allah commanded him to convey. Does that mean that then the scholars too will say, hey, look what came in the revelation. Let's talk with ambiguous terms also. No. Those ambiguous terms that came in the Quran and the Hadith are by the command of Allah and by a wisdom from Allah Ta'ala. There are benefits in that. Among those benefits is that those verses tell the difference between the intellectuals and the smooth brains. The intellectuals and the smooth brains. You know smooth brain? I learned that one recently. I like it. Also, among the benefits of these texts, these ambiguous texts, is that they show the fairness and objectivity of the true scholars. How so? Because Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah do not accept to attribute to Allah places and directions, yet there came religious texts that appear to attribute to Allah places and directions. So had they been following their whims, they would have examined those texts, perverted them, denied them. But what did they do? They didn't do that, despite that they don't believe in the apparent meaning of those texts. When they checked them and found them authentic, they verified them. They didn't pervert them or change them or alter them. Even they preserved their wordings and gave their alternative interpretations. They didn't lose the original wording and just put their interpretation in its place. That shows you their honesty and their objectivity and their fairness and their research, because they said it's authentic. What appears to disagree with them, they verify it. وَأَمَّا الْمُتَشَابِهَاتُ الْخَبَرِيَّةِ As for the ambiguous prophetic transmission,